This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
So always wanting to do something or wondering what's next or working towards something bigger and better next is very alluring and can give you great energy. But if you're doing it too much or you're putting too much focus and attention on it, it really robs you of the joy and contentment and happiness you can be feeling now.
Welcome to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. I'm your host, Maritza Barone. Get ready to hear moments that will help you to see the world differently and inspire you to become the happiest, healthiest, and kindest version of you. Welcome back to Things You Can't Unhear, my friend. How are you today? Now, I want to ask you a question. What happens when the career you've built over so many years no longer feels like the right fit for you? In this episode, I sit down with Bec Brown, who has pivoted her careers to completely different industries multiple times. And in my opinion, she's done them all with maximum effort and ability. Bec was once a dynamic singer, then became a powerhouse founder of the well-known PR agency, the comms department, where she worked with global artists such as the Wiggles and Katy Perry, just to name a few. And now she's a student of neuroscience. We talk about the courage it takes to pivot, the challenges of starting fresh, and how to uncover what truly lights you up. So we'll unpack navigating uncertainty. We'll talk about the powerful mindset shift that make it work and finding what to do next if what you're doing now isn't serving you like it once did. You'll walk away inspired by this chat and perhaps ready to take your own leap. So let's jump into the conversation. Before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all of our new episodes. Welcome, Bec Brown, to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast.
Thank you so much.
I love how social media sometimes can bring us wonderful human beings, and we connected recently and been chatting ever since. So I'm so pleased that you're here now in front of me and we can get to share your life journey because I find you fascinating.
Thank you. Well, I'm very happy to be here. I love chatting about ideas and chatting about topics, and I think we're about to have a really good conversation.
We are. Now, for anyone listening, if you are thinking about a life change, a career pivot, a shift in your pathway at the moment, this is going to be for you because, Bec, you've done, I don't know if you've got the list in your head, but I want you to just reel off the list of careers that you've had.
All right, actual careers I've had. I started out as a musician, so I worked in musical theatre, opera, jazz, and then from there moved into some television. But then from there, I had a bit of what I call my quarter-life crisis when I was 25, after years of study and having gone down that first career path. And I realised I wasn't happy and I needed to make some changes. So then I retrained, went back to uni, studied media and communications and moved into PR. In PR, one of the things I loved about it is writing. We do a lot of writing in PR, among many other things. But from there, I then published a book, which has been a really lovely privilege, and being able to share different learnings that I've had. But right now I'm in another little stage of transition. During my PR career, I was also studying psychology because it's a really helpful part of PR. They say that a good PR is a blend of a journalist, a lawyer and a psychologist. And so that kind of ticked that box. But I got really interested in neuroscience, and I've always been interested in it because I think the brain is probably our most fascinating organ. It's the home of the mind, and whereas psychology in the mind is a bit conceptual and a bit abstract, you can't really see it, you can talk about it, the brain is something biological and very tangible that we can study. And now with all the advances in technology, with brain scanning, we can see and learn all these incredible things. So I'm now studying neuroscience, and I'll be completely honest, not entirely sure where that's going to head next, but I'm trusting the process that it will lead in the right direction.
How exciting. Because honestly, when I was growing up, it almost felt like we had to choose one thing and stick to it.
And now it's really not the case. And we can move and shift and pivot, that word that comes up all the time. We can pivot into new things. Do you think that the past is wasted? Anything that you do in the past has an expiry date and doesn't need any part of the neuroscience pathway that you're coming into?
Not at all. Nothing is ever wasted. No learning experience, no hands-on experience, no training you've ever done will ever go to waste. I think you just layer it on top of everything you've already done, and then it becomes helpful in the next area that you do move into. It took a while for that to be the case, because I'm a little bit on the fence. Yes, you can shift and pivot as much as you want, but in order to be quite good at something, you do need to put in the hours and stay the course on something for a set amount of time as well. So it's I feel like it's a dance between staying the course and putting in the hours while, being able to shift and have some flexibility as you go as well.
That's a really good point, because I suppose you've done, I think you named about 5 different things there, but you did them all really well, didn't you? You gave 100% to each of those things. Your singing and your musical theatre career was amazing. Your PR career is still wonderful, and you've worked with, you tell me who, some of the names that you've worked with in your career when it came to PR.
Though, and thank you, that's a lovely, lovely compliment. And I think some of that comes down to being really, not obsessive, but really passionate and curious about each of those industries or each of those jobs while I was in them. Growing up, I always wanted to move into musical theatre. I just loved it. I grew up watching, we were watching videos back then, watching videos of all of the great musicals, and I always wanted to be on stage. And I was lucky in that I had a good bass voice, and my parents got me singing lessons, and so because of that they really encouraged me and moved me along on that path. But the musical career was amazing until it wasn't, and for me the actual practicalities of being a musician, you tend to work at night, and there's usually a lot of travel. You usually go where the work is, so I was travelling a lot. Things are a bit easier these days with communication, but back when I was doing it, there was no social media, there were no video calls. It could be quite isolating, away from family and friends. So at the time, and I'm somebody who really likes their sleep. I didn't realise that, and it's quite important to get daylight during the day and go to bed at night. And musical theatre in particular, and working in bands and all the different jobs that I was doing, it was a lot of night work and it was isolating me a little bit. I also, you're always on show, so you have to, again, roles have changed a little bit these days, but back then you had to look a certain way, you had to be a certain weight, your skin always needed to look great, and I found that scrutiny quite challenging. And so it was time to step away from that. But what was super helpful after I retrained was that my very first big PR job was working for a record company. So I took speaking of layering, I took all of that musical knowledge into my PR career working for Universal Music. And that led me to working with incredible big names over a long period of time, people like the Rolling Stones and Sting and the Eagles, and, to be in the room. I didn't work directly with these artists, but my team would be working on, Rihanna and Lady Gaga. And I remember, we helped launch Lady Gaga into Australia and into the world, and went to these tiny little gigs with her, Taylor Swift back before she was huge. So they were amazing opportunities. But again, as time went on, I wanted to be able to run my own show and to work also on some other industries outside of music. So I, 13 years ago, left and set up my own PR company. But with that came some really great musicians and artists that I've had the pleasure of working with. A lot of people across radio and news, people like Amanda Keller and Kyle and Jackie O and the Wiggles and who else? Katy Perry. There have been lots of different big names, but equally we do really important work across lots of other industries, whether it be travel or health. Working there at the time and continuing that has been incredible, but again, there's always a bit of a yearning to go, what else what else could I do, or what else will I do next? And I think, again, looking after the PR for a client like the Royal Flying Doctor Service, for example, that gave me more of a glimpse into health and well-being, which again came back to neuroscience. And I found this incredible statistic that, so the Royal Flying Doctor Service, who are known for their aviation rescues, so they'll, go around all into Australia, and if you are unwell, they'll retrieve you and take you to a hospital. But they also do a lot of primary healthcare in different areas too. But there was a staggering statistic that they actually have more mental health appointments that they facilitate than they do those retrieval missions with planes. And so that again got me thinking about how important mental health is, and off the back of everything that our world has gone through after the pandemic and where we are today as well, and with a lot of uncertainty with AI around the workforce, mental health is huge. And it's an area that I'm definitely passionate about. So again, I think the underlying theme of all of that is I've always just followed my passion and curiosity and then applied time to it. One of the greatest tips I ever received, because even with study, study takes time and it's expensive, and I
absolutely
I'd already done a music degree. I have a graduate diploma in media and communications. To be honest, actually, I've never actually finished that.
Doesn't matter. No one
Never
will ever
mind.
know.
I
think you've far exceeded those expectations.
But then when I, this next round, I've gone, do I really? This is going to take me years, but the time will pass anyway. So you may as well just do it. And in 5 years' time, you have finished and life has gone on and you've graduated and you've done the learning and you can move on. Now, study's not for everybody, and I'm not saying that's, the only way at all, but it's been something that's also helped give me the structure to maintain focus, because once I've paid all this money for this study, I've got to keep doing it.
Exactly. You need something to pull you in every single time, apart from your curiosity.
Yeah.
So someone's listening and they're thinking, I might be at the end of my current career pathway and I'm curious about something new. What do you think some of the telltale signs would be that would be going through their heads?
Sometimes when you get to a point in your current role or your current profession, some of the tells are you just feel bored. You start seeing things come in and it feels so predictable. Even if it's challenging or a new scenario, you just start going, I know exactly how this is going to end. And it becomes a bit monotonous and you just don't get that same level of joy out of it as you once did. Now, sometimes that could just mean you need a holiday and perhaps you need to come back to it with some fresh eyes. But a lot of the time it might be that you have evolved and perhaps the role hasn't evolved with you. Sometimes it could then be, I wonder if I could just change this role slightly, or maybe there's another role that's very similar to what I'm doing. But I think it's often a really great time for a reframe and a refocus, just to check where you are in your life. I always come back to working out what your values are and what your definition of success is right now, because that will change over time. That certainly, my values and my definition of success have changed dramatically in the last 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, but they shift every year too. It's not something that's stagnant and stationary. So it's probably a great time to have a check-in to say, okay, what do I actually value in life? What is important to me now? I always rank them from 1 to 10. And so I've got a really solid list. And then again, start looking at what I'm passionate and curious about, what is it that's bringing me joy? What are the types of things I enjoy? Again, if you don't really know, it might be what do I do when time evaporates when I'm doing it? Or what was something I did as a kid that used to make me feel really happy? There's sometimes areas that might spark ideas for you. And then it's, again, when you come back to your values, go, okay, if I move ahead in this new direction, how's that going to stack up and align? Will that compromise or will that help my values to where I want to be now?
And my version of success now.
Yeah.
It can be difficult for people to make that move because of financial obligations and self-doubt. I've had so many conversations with friends, women over the time. I think men, not so much. I feel like they go for it a bit more for some reason in my experience. But women, sometimes we hold ourselves back because the time's not right, or we don't believe that we can do it, or it's going to be too difficult, or we don't necessarily put ourselves first in certain situations. And then, you know, a decade goes by and we're like, I'm still yearning for this thing that's in my heart.
Yes. Yeah, it's so true. And there are all those factors. There are financial considerations, there are psychological considerations, there are biological considerations. You know, women, we go through puberty, then we potentially may go through motherhood, then we'll be going through menopause. There's so many stages for us as well that change how we're feeling on a day-to-day basis that affect us physically and mentally. And all of those things can play into how confident we then feel to make a change. Sometimes as well, it comes down to what your pain point is. So for some people who crave familiarity and comfort, they would rather remain in that space than go out into trying something new, because uncertainty is scarier than familiarity and comfort. Then there are some other people who, and this is a spectrum too, I think you're probably somewhere on the line. At the other end, the familiar and being where you are feels stuck and stagnant and horrible, and that's more uncomfortable than the unfamiliar and the uncertainty. So sometimes it's working out where you are on that spectrum and what your level of risk is and what your level of comfort is. But sometimes putting little deadlines in place are helpful. So I am now living on the Sunshine Coast, but 3 years ago I was in Sydney and had been in Sydney for nearly 20 years. And it was a really big life decision to A, move out of Sydney, and B, change my company to allow me to do that, which meant stepping back from some of our bigger clients as well. And one of the things that helped me with that was that I was in my early 40s then, and I went, do I want to be doing this job when I'm 50? And my answer was no. And when I say this job, I didn't want to keep working at the pace I was working at, the volume I was working. And I also could also see the writing on the wall with AI. My industry's changing a lot. And so I knew that I wanted to not be doing that at 50. And so for me, I went, I have to start making changes step by step. At the time I was like, I think, I've got 8 years. How am I going to do this? And I've never been really strict on creating really rigid rules on, okay, this is what I have to achieve this year and this is my 5-year plan. I'm not that person at all. I'm more about I have a general direction and I start taking little daily steps towards that direction rather than having like a map, so to speak.
I think the daily steps is the key.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's going, oh my God, I need to do that thing, literally take one move towards doing it, even if it's like researching the course or finding someone to have a conversation with about it, or just opening up a chat with your family about it, or even writing in a journal about it if you don't want to talk to anyone about it, and just getting clear on what that next move, even if it's a small one, what that could be.
Yeah, that's it.
It is so life-changing when you actually do sort of check in with yourself and realise that you've changed and evolved, and what you can do as a result of that is pretty special. And I think you mentioned, getting out of that comfort. It's not easy. Like, I have certainly done that a lot in the last 5 years, and in the lead up, especially to some of our live events that we put on for the podcast, there's a lot of work that goes into it, a huge amount of work. You're selling tickets, there's promotion, it's non-stop sort of activity. And then it comes to the event and you're like almost so torn out of your comfort zone. And then once the event starts and it's on and then it finishes, you feel amazing and you realise, wow, I did something special there. And yes, I was uncomfortable for the lead up in doing it because it was all new and all sort of a bit, hard sometimes. But the outcome, nothing can describe that feeling.
It's like that concept of do the hard work now and it makes everything easy later. But if you do the easy work now, it makes everything harder later.
Yeah.
And so that's, in that respect, it's the same. And you can also, the way you just describe that was, it sounds like you work in bursts. So you work really hard and it's a sprint, and then you have this incredible moment, and then hopefully you rest hard at the end and you have a break and you give yourself time to catch up and reflect, and then it's on to the next one.
It. I'm doing that right now as I prepare for a month away in Europe. I'm like putting 2 months of work into August while I go away in September, and it's fun. But I'm looking forward to that recharge.
And you have to have that recharge. And I made all the mistakes. I laugh, like I made all the mistakes. The reason I don't want to make anyone under any illusion that I have all the answers and that I have it all together. Half of the reason that I've had really successful companies is I've been willing to make a lot of mistakes, but as long as I've learnt from them, and I try really hard, and some days you remember everything and you're nailing it and you're on top of your game, and then other days you forget everything you've learnt and you make all the mistakes, and you fly off the handle and you think, oh no, what just happened? But over time, it's like you've said, it's those small incremental steps daily. They lead to incredible life transformations, and it's just backing yourself and trusting and knowing that over time, these great things will come, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. And it doesn't matter, it's, progress, not perfection. It's about just taking one little step. And I'm absolutely the queen of becoming overwhelmed, and I have to put guardrails in place to make sure that doesn't happen. And one of them is constantly reminding myself one step at a time. And when you do start doing that step one, let's say it is putting on some huge event and you're like, oh my goodness, where do I even start? I've got a million things to do, and then it becomes too overwhelming. You map out a plan, and the first step might just be looking at the venue. And once you actually start researching the venue, all that fear falls away because you don't actually have time. You become in flow, you're busy doing the thing, and then suddenly you tick it off your list and you've done it. And I even now, sometimes, particularly because at the moment I'm juggling uni and work, I have a daily planner. I've mapped everything out for the month, and I just have a daily quota of work that I have to get done every day. And sometimes at 3 p.m. I get it done, and old Bec would have gone, quick, let's start getting a head start on tomorrow's. No, I'm done. That's it.
Clever.
Log off.
I heard Jay Shetty say something recently that stuck with me. He said, our brains remember unfinished tasks more than tasks we haven't started yet, which I found really interesting. And you're into neuroscience, so I'm sure you find this interesting as well. But that means when we start something, we'll have the motivation, because we'll keep thinking about, I've started that, I haven't finished it yet. We'll have the motivation to then continue it so it becomes finished and it is completed. Whereas if we don't start something, we sort of tend to let it fall away. So the key is, according to Jay Shetty and this research that he'd done on the human brain, is that, just start small, and then you'll find that motivation to keep going.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And it's something about unclosed loops and completion bias. So it gives you a nice kick when you do get it finished, and your brain has remembered that, I'm going to feel good when this is done, so I'm just going to keep going.
Made me feel good about all the tabs open on my computer screen.
Amantha Imber, who's an organisational psychologist in Australia, she's written lots of books, but one of the things she does, which I can't actually do, but she's very disciplined, is she'll even, when she's writing, when she's finished her quota, she'll literally finish like mid-sentence or mid-paragraph, so that the next day when she starts again, she can pick up, and it's easier for her to pick up from where she left off rather than start again. Because otherwise, that whole, if you're starting to write the next day and you're staring at a blank page, you're like, oh, where do I even go? But if you look back, this is what I can pick up from yesterday, away you go and you get into flow.
Yeah, that's clever.
Yeah,
I like
clever.
that.
I find it hard because of completion bias, because I want to finish it on the day, but yeah.
Yeah, I have these weird things that I do so I'll be 99% through something. I actually don't like this about myself. 99% through something, and I think in my head, okay, that's done. I pretty much just have to proofread it and close it off, and I'm done. And then I'll just let it sit there, and I'll jump onto another task, because in my head done. It's terrible. So I've forced myself to stop doing that now because I'm a completion, then move on, Maritza. Stop being silly.
That's good. Well done. But again, you've got the awareness that you're doing it, and then that you can resolve that.
Yes. Now, you've had obviously a lot of people come to you over the course of your career asking you similar questions about purpose and their pathway, and you've written this amazing book. You've got the Essential Career Handbook for Creative Women. What actually inspired this book? Because I feel like this was written for me and I cannot wait to jump into it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. So I was constantly getting asked for advice from a lot of young professionals or people who were wanting to have a career change about how I'd done it. And this was when I'd set up the comms department and it was flourishing and going incredibly well. And so I enjoy mentoring and I enjoy passing on information. I feel like nobody owns information. I just feel so lucky. I've learnt so much through great mentors, through psychologists, through learning that I've done with uni studies and all of the books and podcasts that I listen to. And one of a big key driver for me is to share information once I have it. One of my very favourite quotes, which I kind of live by and I feel like is one of my purposes, is it's from a Mary Oliver poem, and it says, pay attention, be astonished, tell about it.
Pay attention, be astonished,
tell about
it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? And it makes sense because often I'm reading something, or if I come across this amazing piece of research, then my first thought is, wow, that is amazing. I am astonished. Then I go, I have to tell everyone about
Me too.
this.
I'm exactly the same. Not everyone's like this though.
I know. I have discovered that, which kind of I find strange too.
Yeah.
But to that point, I would, I just wanted to share my learnings because they were things that had helped me so much that my next thought is, well, everyone else needs to know about this too. So I used to have a blog and I used to share things on a blog, and then over time I started putting it was a big PDF and people would come asking me for things, and time can be precious, and so I started just emailing the PDF out to people, and then I suddenly realised actually this should be a book.
I should probably monetize the effort that I've put into writing all these words.
Yeah. So that's really how the book came about, and it's learnings that have helped me across my whole life, and I'm very open. It is through my lens, of course, and I'm very open. I've had some mental health issues in the past that I've had to deal with depression, anxiety, and eating disorders, and being able to, work through those was incredibly helpful, and it was through the generosity and expertise of, again, amazing psychologists and researchers who are far smarter and more advanced than I am, who helped me. And so I just felt like I wanted to pass all of that on. But the other thing too is, coming from a creative industry, there can be sometimes, and again, this is shifting and changing, but there can sometimes be a bit of a dirty kind of feeling about being paid well for your art if you're a writer or any kind of creative. And at the end of the day, our time and our effort, I think, should be remunerated, and we all deserve to earn, a great income to be able to support our families, our friends, our communities, and go on to do what we want to do. So another reason about that was I found particularly a lot of people who work in creative industries haven't been able to work out how to monetize what they do. And so I wanted to give a bit more of a view into how I did it and some of the things that work for me, and, how you can turn that into a business as well.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of these conversations too with my creative friends and even myself. When I first got into TV presenting, I think I volunteered for years. It was crazy because it was such a competitive industry as well. You think, I have to get my foot in the door. I have to get the experience. I'll just do it for whatever. Yeah. Or, I'll drop everything and I'll come. And you come to the point where that is not sustainable, and it's also not fair to you, yourself, to anyone around you.
Yeah.
And you just got to pull the brakes on that, don't you?
You do. And you nailed it. The word that I really struck with me just then was it's not sustainable. And that's it. And it's not fair. Fairness and justice is a bit of a core value for me, and I find it really strange. Like when I entered the music industry, or when I entered, the more PR industry, interns, like unpaid interns, was a huge thing. And I would watch these like young professionals who are struggling with uni fees and then they're doing all this unpaid work just to get a foot in the door, and it just felt wrong. And so that was another thing when I set up the comms department. I was like, we are never having unpaid interns. Like if anybody works for us, you get paid. And I think it's a really important thing. And also it sets a standard for how people treat you as well. And if you provide value, you should be remunerated for that. So that I feel like, and again, it's not easy, and there are some tips in the book about how to kind of how to best navigate your way through that. Things like navigating, a pay rise as well if you work for a big company. Things like that are in the book as well, because I think it's really important. And particularly for women, a lot of women, we're not necessarily the ones to put ourselves forward. So yeah, I think it's very important.
You said something earlier, and it was just one word. It was your purposes. So a lot of people say, my purpose. What is my purpose? We think we need to have only one purpose in life.
I know.
That was a bit of a mic drop for me, because we can have more than one purpose.
Nothing wrong with purposes.
And at the same time, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think too, I do, a lot of research has been done around who the happiest people in the world are. And there's a really great study that was done on it was for 100-year-old people, and they're looking back across their life and what made them so happy versus people who were perhaps in their 70s or 80s who weren't perhaps so happy with their life.
The centenarians.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And apart from, things such as diet and exercise and community, and then biological things like, potentially having good genetics or less biological risk, one of the most important things that you could do is to have purpose.
We often talk on this podcast about stepping into new pathways that bring more joy and meaning to life. But for many of us, those dreams of change get put on hold for family, for work, and for commitments that just pile up. If you've been waiting for the right time to take that next step in your career, or you just want to learn new skills, the sponsor of this episode may just have the answer. With summer semester at Charles Darwin University, you can start small, 1 or 2 subjects online or on campus, and ease into study in a way that's flexible around your life. CDU is Australia's top dual sector uni for graduate outcomes, and their supportive lecturers make it easier to balance study, family, and career. So if you're ready for a new chapter and the chance to finally step into the version of yourself you've been imagining, what are you waiting for? Search CDU Summer or click the link in the episode description while you finish listening to this episode, and apply now to start in November.
But it never has to be one thing. It just has to be something that's extrinsic, so something that's external to you rather than it focusing all on you. If your goal is to set up a really successful company, which is great, but a purpose that might come from that that's external or extrinsic is you'll have employees that you'll be looking after. Ideally, your company will be working towards something that's great for people on the planet. Whatever you're doing, you'll be serving somebody. So that might be your purpose. But that's not to also say that one of your purposes might also be about nourishing and looking after your family, or being a really great friend, or being an amazing aunt, or something even bigger, like, you might want to do something huge for the environment, or there's so many different areas. And I do love Gen Z in particular. I take a lot of learnings and value from Gen Z who have kind of wanted to look more about what's purposeful for them rather than always chasing, some long-winded career that results in burnout.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, I see a lot of value in that.
It's definitely evolved. And also someone brought this up to me recently about asking people what they want to do when they leave school, but adding the word next. What do you want to do next? So it's not as serious as what do you want to do, full stop, because that's stressful, especially that's stressful for me to even hear that in my 40s, let alone to a 17-year-old who's like, oh, I have to make a decision for the rest of my life on what I want to do. But what do you want to do next? Let's have a 5-year plan. And I loved that idea.
I love that. That's great. And you're right, like it's perfect for school leavers, but perfect for us.
For all of us.
Yeah.
What do you want to do next?
Yeah.
I remember when my dad turned 70, I said, so what are you doing for the next 30 years? He just wanted to slap me, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, honestly, it is, the ability for us to be constantly thinking about what could be next if we're feeling dull in life and feeling ready for a shake-up.
Yeah.
It's never too late.
Yeah, exactly. And it is, to that point, I feel like that dovetails nicely into the always wanting to do something or wondering what's next or working towards something bigger and better next is very alluring and can give you great energy. But if you're doing it too much or you're putting too much focus and attention on it, it really robs you of the joy and contentment and happiness you can be feeling now. And again, that was something I was very bad at. I was always reaching for the next thing. And I would celebrate my wins, absolutely, when I finally got there, but I was then straight away, within a day, going, okay, what am I going to do next? What's next? What's next? And it was...
Can you read my mind?
But at the back, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I really do believe, that's where all growth comes from. And I think it is really important to keep moving and growing. But you have to still have one foot in the present to enjoy where you are. And
Definitely.
I think actually I know that you have a gratitude practice, and I feel like that's something that is a really helpful daily reminder. I do the same morning and night when I get up in the morning and when I go to bed. I think of 3 or 4 things that I'm grateful for right here, right now, rather than what's coming up next and what I have to do next. And it's very
gratitude
grounding.
can be so overrated. It's now just a narrative in my head all the time.
Good.
And
that's that repetition that would have done that for you.
Definitely. Like it was initially, a morning journal of gratitude, and then I was training myself to think in that way. Now it's literally every time I tap my card and buy groceries, thank you. Every time I don't know, have beautiful lunch in my head, I'm like, oh, thank you, that was delicious. So this is the narrative in my head, and it's the lens now that I see the world through. I see it more from a view of positivity. I think probably I'm too positive sometimes. I'm always hopeful and positive. It might annoy some people. But I definitely see the world where there's always some type of hope or opportunity or lesson. I'm curious how you see the world.
Yeah. Oh, I love hearing that. It's really, it's just... The other thing too, I can't help myself because of all the learning I've done with neuroscience. I now know what's happening in our brains when all that's happening as well. And the fact that you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it now means it's second nature, and it's become this shift for you. And one of the ways that our brains learn, it's through reinforcement learning, which when something happens in our life, let's say we go to a cafe and we order a beautiful breakfast, and it comes out and that breakfast is the best breakfast we've ever had. Our brains remember and go, right, this cafe is incredible. I've had a positive moment here, which is called a positive prediction error, and so I'm going to remember that and repeat it. If you went to the same cafe and you had a terrible breakfast, your brain goes, okay, that's a negative prediction error. That was not great. I won't come back here again. Our brains are doing that on every single tiny thing that we do every single day. So because you've started your gratitude practice and you started focusing on the great thing, putting awareness on the things, your brain then goes, oh, I've remembered that and that felt good and I liked it. I liked how my body felt after it. So the next time that happens, let's do that again. And so that means that like habit change is much easier when you are aware and be kind of curious, and you're on the lookout for them. So that was a very long-winded way of saying.
It's really interesting. It's almost like we've rewired the brain.
It is. It's exactly. So it's using neuroplasticity. So your brain is plastic and can move, and brain neurons can adapt and change, and new circuits can be made, and it's all about habit change. Dr. Judson Brewer is an extraordinary neuroscientist. I really rate him, and again, if there's any books and podcasts that he does, I really recommend them. He does a lot in habit change, which works around anything from smoking to eating to all the way to a much broader spectrum, smartphone use, but even things like overthinking or ruminating, or, going down paths that feel quite addictive. He's really great at that. And he's really good at going, okay, let's minimize the bad, unhealthy habits and let's maximize the good, healthy habits so that they become routine and they become second nature. Because your positivity would be a result of your thoughts and your beliefs that you have made, that you've put your attention on and you've repeated over and over and over again. And because of that, you now have this great positive mindset. And, it's really, for some people, they might go, oh, what is that?
Be real, Maritza.
Yeah, but it's your brain. It's the way your brain has now wired itself. But I'm sure that came off the back of much self-reflection and
Definitely.
awareness, and you have to go through that first to be able to come out the other side.
Yeah, I think we're actually all born quite positive, and then we unlearn it, and then maybe I had to learn it again. That's the cycle of how it's probably been for me. But yeah, now it just, sometimes I feel like a lot of my practices that I used to do have fallen off, but they haven't when I really think about it, because they have become just second nature. And yes, I don't sit there and meditate as long as I used to. I don't go and silently sit in the other room and meditate now, but I will go for a walk without my phone, and that's almost like a meditation to me, because there's no interruptions, there's no distractions, and it's just me, shutting off the mind and taking in the sunshine. Hopefully it's sunshiny outside.
Yeah.
But that's how I've just sort of integrated it. So it's really livable. So it's every single day rather than something that I have to do.
Yes. And that's, again, I you've really integrated all of that into your life. That's that next level of being able to integrate good habits so that they become effortless.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Dr. Judson Brewer talks a lot about the fact that willpower is not a thing. Willpower runs out. It has any kind of behaviour change, you cannot rely on willpower. It's more about setting up these little micro habits that set you in good stead, and then your brain, and then placing awareness on them, and your brain then works out if it's getting good things out of it or bad things out of it, and then it will repeat either of those.
I love that.
Yeah.
I just mentioned that I haven't been meditating a lot lately, but the other day I was so frustrated, and I felt like I was putting in all of this work and effort into a project, and I wasn't seeing the results, and I was feeling so super frustrated. I'm like, okay, I'm turning this off for a moment. And I went into my bedroom, I closed the door, and I just silently sat there and did a meditation, and I walked out and I felt much better. But not only did I feel much better, I picked up my phone and 2 emails came through that literally green lighted the frustration I was having and signed off on what I'd been working on. And I'm like, it's magic.
Isn't that amazing? It really is.
It's magic.
Perspective and time are so underrated. Like allowing yourself, and again, I say this as someone who's had to learn this the hard way, because I was never very good at sitting with discomfort. So yes, I may be fine with, I'm pretty high on the spectrum of launching out into uncertainty to try something new, but I don't like feeling uncomfortable. And for me, that can often lead to overwork, because I've got to get this done right now. I don't like unclosed loops. I must finish everything. Or I don't have the patience to let things unfold naturally over time. I'm like, no, I'm just going to fix it now. And sometimes now is not the right time to do it at all, because you might not be in the right headspace. You might need to let things go, have a little break. And I've really started to learn, and again, notice when it happens, which you've just, you noticed when it happened for you. Now I deliberately go, I'm not going to reply to that yet. I'm going to let it go a couple of hours or a day, how depends on the circumstance, but I'm going to wait and see if what happens and if things just unfold naturally and things take care of themselves. And I had no idea how many times things just take care of themselves.
Definitely.
If you just back off a bit.
I agree
and
with
let
that
things
a lot.
flow. Yeah. And now I've started to take notice. So much like you, I put attention on it. My brain then goes, oh, this was good. This was a good thing. Let's do that again. So the next time that thing occurs again, I go, oh no, remember brain? Yep, let's leave it. And the meditation I have a morning practice every day that just sees me in good stead, and it just puts me in a space where I feel like I've taken one step back from my thoughts, my emotions, my mood, and it gives me perspective. And then that allows me to move a bit more gracefully through the day.
It definitely is a very useful practice that I probably should be doing more of in silence and not just integrating through walking, because it like I said, it just completely shifted my brain.
Yeah, it's
and the way that I interacted and the way that the world interacted with me. So it's great. But I want to get into a bit of the mindset around PR at this point, because I'm curious from the perspective of the media, what do they really look out for that is the hook, the interest, when they decide they'll cover a story or get behind a talent?
Yeah.
What is it, do you think, in your experience in all of these years in PR, that is the secret sauce that PR and publicity is looking for?
Yeah. It has changed over time. We now have this 24/7 media cycle that was very different from, it used to be a 12-hour media cycle, really. This 24/7 media cycle, which is always on, the challenge, I'll speak about the challenges first. The challenges is that media now, we all have, as humans, such short attention spans, and we need to be a bit shocked or outraged or stimulated in order for there to be some cut through. And
that makes me feel a little outraged.
Yeah, doesn't it? It's not great. And again, that comes back to our human survival wiring about, if we were on alert, we were safe. We weren't going to get eaten by a tiger. So now, though, unfortunately, all it does is make a spiral. But at the heart of all of that, it comes down to something being newsworthy. If you're wanting to do PR for your business and wanting to promote something that you're passionate about, you need to find a newsworthy hook. And that depends on so many factors, but one of them is even just ensuring that you're finding a media outlet that is aligned to what you're talking about and what you want to do. So, some stories lend themselves beautifully to long form interviews like podcasts, or, a bit highbrow like The Conversation, or even the Sydney Morning Herald, or some of those other kind of longer form investigative news pieces. And then others might be much more simple, and it might be something for a news.com or a Daily Mail, or it really depends on what your piece of news is and what you're trying to sell. But you have to try and create something newsworthy. So you need to be entertaining, or you need to be heartfelt. So it has to be like, maybe it's a heartwarming story. Perhaps it's new, so it's the first time something's ever happened, or there's amazing data or statistics that back up your project that show something revelationary or something new and exciting. They're kind of the main ones. I mean, yes, outrage, if you want to play in that space, outrage or controversy is another avenue that can be used for PR. But again, it has to be handled a little bit carefully, because some brands are not going to work well in a controversial outrage space. So there's some of the little tips and tricks.
So do you feel like you could find a newsworthy hook for anything that's presented to you? Usually, like, you'd be surprised. Like, most things can, and like, there are some tricks. Like, if your brand is particularly not the most, if it's just some kind of product that you're selling that perhaps it's not new, it's not revolutionary, it's
perhaps not really doing anything special, maybe that's when you bring in a celebrity ambassador to have them use their acclaim and their interests to do it. But maybe why did you get into business? What's the why behind it? Is there a heartwarming, interesting story about what got you really interested in that? So there's some of the other little tricks that you can use.
Yeah. I find it all so fascinating. And then when I see brands that really take off, like the one that got me was Frank Green drink bottles, because I was just like, don't get it, because they actually chip and they're super expensive, and this is a drink bottle. But the marketing and the publicity behind it, I think they brought in some well-known faces.
And that's the other thing too, because PR, it depends, because there are lots of facets when you do put them together, because PR is traditionally not necessarily paid, so
That's
it's
right, yeah.
more about publicity, or you might pay influencers to help you promote, or brand ambassadors, but generally speaking it's unpaid, whereas the marketing is something that you're paying for. And the other thing to keep in mind, a lot of the stories that you are seeing in the news now is advertorial, it's paid. So there is a spend behind it, but it looks a lot like editorial. So marketing and PR, it's never been more important for the two to work together. I think the Frank Green is probably a really good example of that. Like, it relied on all of the facets, and they had lots of different levers that they used across their marketing spend, across social media, or across media, like traditional media. So it's probably knowing that there are lots of different levers that you can push, and PR may not be the answer for many things. It could be that it's actually just a social media spend, or maybe it's a paid advertising campaign, or there are so many different, it depends on each case.
I find it fascinating. And I think you've gone off and done this whole neuroscience thing. You're going to know people's brains inside and out. And I think after that, you might need to go back into PR, because you're going to nail it even more.
It is. Behaviour change was a big part of why I was so interested in psychology, because when you understand how and why people think and behave, you can then influence that.
Exactly.
And
right.
Ideally for good.
Ideally for good. And for the good of the brand and your client and everyone who purchases the product or gets behind the person. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And even like if you look at healthcare, for example, like governments spend a lot of money and resources trying to get people to exercise more or eat more healthily. And so having an understanding of behaviour change and what's happening psychologically but also neurobiologically is really helpful to those types of things. And then yes, you could change behaviour for good in those areas, so that if it's around health, but yes, you could also change that behaviour to get people to start coming to your restaurant or to start coming to your website for something. So
yeah. And I've noticed a lot invoking curiosity is another big part of hooking people in, especially lately. I think on socials, it's been a huge spark that I've seen is just, giving a teaser of a bit of information, and then I want to know more, and you're 5 pages deep trying to find the answer to something.
Yes. And I know I keep talking about him, but he's incredible. So Dr. Judson Brewer talks about that there's 2 types of curiosity, D-type and I-type. D-type is deprivation curiosity. So that's the one where you've just read the headline and now you go, wait, I need to know more about that. I've got to find out the answer. What? So then you go into the rabbit hole and you try and find out what the answer is, and you need to know it. And that one, again, is quite addictive. And the people who are creating those headlines know that. Yeah. And again, it's human behaviour, so they know that is a helpful thing to do with your business, and it does work quite well. The other type of interest is curiosity is interest-based curiosity, and it's a bit more open-ended. It's more, that's the rabbit hole one that you go down, where you might you'll start looking at, I wonder what the answer to that specific question was, and then on the side of it you go, oh wait, hang on, but look at what they're wearing. And I wonder where they got those clothes from. And then I wonder who makes those clothes. And then, okay, so that's over in China. I wonder what else they do in China. And then suddenly, you've gone 5 steps. But that one's called interest curiosity. And that one's equally addictive, but it gives a greater sense of contentment and peace, because it's not so answers delineated. Like, it's not so I must find the answer, which can feel a bit obsessive.
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas the other one can be a bit more peaceful. And you can use both of those, though, in your marketing to get people to interact and engage with your brand. Yeah.
Definitely need to look into this expert that you keep bringing up.
Oh, yeah,
He does
he's
sound
really
fascinating.
good. I just have such respect because he has his own research facilities. He was at Yale. I think he's at Brown now. So he's very accredited. And but he runs a lot of his own research as well, while also looking at everybody else's. So he's not just reporting on other people's work; he's actually doing the work too.
Super. Well, I found everything that you've shared so far so absolutely interesting and fascinating. But I want to know a little bit about you. Tell me where you grew up. What was life like for you when you were a kid?
So I grew up little Bec Brown from Georgetown.
Bec Brown from Georgetown. Is that a nursery rhyme?
It was a very sweet upbringing when I look back on it. So I grew up in country South Australia. We lived out on a farm. My parents weren't farmers, but we lived out on a farm. It was about 10 or 15 kilometres out from little towns. I think there were 50 people in my primary school and 200 people in my high school. And it was a great upbringing. It was lovely. You know, we were, my dad was a nurse. Again, though, speaking of which, he had many career changes. So he went to Bible college and he became a pastor, a Baptist pastor. And he did that while working on the farm this was all before I was born. And then not long after I was born, I was a bit of a late in life surprise. I'm the youngest of four. And Dad, at that time, a drought was on and a lot of the farm work had kind of dried up. And so there was a possibility for him to do some work at the local hospital. And he'd been doing aid work over in Africa. And when he was over there, it's kind of everybody's on the ground helping in any way they could. And he was helping the local doctor on a lot of surgeries and all those types of really quite intense medical things. And so he really enjoyed that. So when he got to that point, he was in his 40s and he became a nurse. He's always, he said, I would have liked to have done more, but it wasn't a reality. And he loved it. And it was quite strange. A male nurse at the time, it was a very female-driven industry. But he absolutely loved it. And he then, over the years, went into like hospital administration and he ran small regional hospitals. And then back when he was in his 70s, he became a nurse back on the ward again. He just loved it. He loved caring for people. But that was Dad. And then very strict though, like we had a very strict, quite conservative upbringing. And Mum worked multiple jobs. She was a bookkeeper for some of the local farmers and she also ran all the books for the local healthcare centre. But then the rest of the time, they were taxis for us to sport, taking us to all of our different, my sister and I in particular. My older brother and sister had left home at that stage and we would do sport, I would do music lessons. So it was a beautiful upbringing. Year 11 and 12, I really got into music and they didn't offer music at my school then. So I went to the Big Smoke of Adelaide for year 11 and 12 and then
Who did you live with?
I lived with family friends.
And were they strict too?
That's a really interesting question. I was not very well behaved.
You're like, I'm free.
I was a teenage girl out of like the confines of home the first time. And I feel sorry for them. No, looking back, I was fine, but I was a bit naughty. And but I also struggled, the other thing too, growing up on a farm, you get quite resourceful because there's nobody there to fix it. If something's broken or you need to make your own fun, you have to do it yourself. And in some ways it's wonderful because it makes you very resourceful. In other ways it can make you a bit too hyper independent where you don't ask people for help when you probably should. And so I was one of those teenagers who kind of, people would say, oh, do you need a hand with that? No, I've got it. I'll work it out myself. And I did that a lot through year 11 and 12, but particularly in year 12. And I actually got towards the end of year 12 and I was struggling. Like I was trying to kind of do all my washing and keep up with my studies and buy my groceries. And it was not great. And to this day, she's amazing. My music teacher at the time saw me. I think I was trudging home one day. It was raining and I was trudging home in the rain. And I just remember I had no socks on because I hadn't done my laundry and it was very cold. And she could just see me trudging home and she said, do you want a lift? And she drove me home and I just must have had a bit of a whinge in the car. Anyway, she rang my parents and said, I think Bec should come and live with me for the rest of year 12. And she had a son and daughter who were musicians, so amazing musicians. They both helped me study, and to this day, they're the reason I passed year 12.
So did you go to live with your music teacher?
I went and lived with my music teacher. She was incredible, the most generous, beautiful human. Mum and Dad, very grateful to her. It was just, again, she gave me the guardrails that I probably needed and just a bit of time and attention. And yeah, she's really lovely. We're still friends to this day. She's an amazing woman.
Incredible.
But yeah, so that was a great thing. And so then I went to the conservatorium in Adelaide Uni and did my music degree and went on from there to do music and
all the music,
all the
all the
things.
pivot. Oh, you're definitely a fascinating woman. I'm so pleased to have been in your company today, and I've actually learned so much from this conversation. So I hope it's helped anyone out there listening as well who's thinking about a bit of a change, who's thinking about the next possible steps, or to just even celebrate where they are right now. And that's a big takeaway I got from that too.
Oh, thank you, Maritza. And I agree. To anyone listening, I hope the biggest takeaway is I hope there's something that you've heard here that resonates, because I think
you can't unhear.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. We're all going through this together, and I think the greatest thing we can do is share our experiences and learn from one another. And the reason I love doing this chat with you today is because I've learned things too. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the show. What did you think? And what did you feel? Let us know by leaving me a message on the Things You Can't Unhear Instagram community page. And if you can, give us some ratings love on your favourite listening platform.